2:11 a.m. The steppe air over Belgorod was dead still. No wind, no traffic. Just a concrete air defense complex glowing dim red beneath a low, colorless sky. Inside, rows of radar screens washed the room in ghostly light as Russia's $800 million air defense shield scanned for threats that never came. To Moscow, this grid was untouchable. Layered S-300s, S-400s, search radars, tracking radars, command vans all wired into one impenetrable dome. At Console 3, Captain Oleg Morozov rolled his shoulders, eyes fixed on the main scope. Another quiet night, another routine sweep. Then the line twitched. A tiny contact blinked into existence at extreme range, slow, clumsy, barely above the terrain. No transponder, no ID, nothing about it matched NATO doctrine or known Ukrainian missiles. Probably clutter, someone muttered. But the dot didn't fade. It grew. It climbed. Warning chimes began to pulse. Target classification jumped from unknown to possible cruise missile. Morozov's headset crackled with urgent voices. The system demanded an answer. Engage or hold. What no one in that room knew was that the threat lighting up Russia's billion-ruble shield cost Ukraine about $50,000.
The volunteers developing the Trembita say it will be hundreds of times cheaper than Western equivalent.
What Russia's radar had locked onto wasn't a cruise missile. It wasn't even a weapon. It was a Ukrainian decoy drone, a cheap, awkward-looking airframe built from composite scraps, commercial avionics, and a spoofed heat signature generator. Cost? Around $50,000. But this wasn't some backyard toy. It was engineered for one purpose: to look just dangerous enough to trigger Russia's most expensive defenses. The drone flew erratically by design, wobbling, drifting, occasionally dropping altitude like a damaged missile. To a human operator, it looked broken. To an automated Russian radar system, it looked like a threat trying to evade interception. The decoy wasn't trying to hit anything. It was doing something far more valuable, forcing Russia to reveal how its entire $800 million air defense network thinks. Ukraine didn't launch the decoy to destroy anything. They launched it to listen. As the $50,000 drone drifted toward Russian airspace, Ukraine's ISR network, a fusion of signal interceptors, passive radars, and AI-driven pattern analyzers, started harvesting data in real time. At first, the returns looked chaotic. Russia's radar beams shifted rapidly, cycling through frequencies, tightening and widening scan cones. But Atlas, Ukraine's AI analysis layer, wasn't looking at the noise. It was looking at behavior. The timing between tracking modes, the micro delays in target reacquisition, the angular drift of search radars, the auto-classification hesitation signature, the exact moment Russian systems switched from tracking to firing. Individually, these were meaningless. Together, they formed a fingerprint, the logic behind Russia's $800 million air defense brain. And by the time the decoy reached its midpoint, Ukraine already knew exactly how to break it. The decoy drifted deeper into contested airspace, wobbling just enough to look damaged, predictable, and easy to kill. Exactly as intended. At 2:42 a.m., Russia finally took the bait. A Buk launcher lit up first, a sharp, narrow radar beam locking onto the decoy with textbook precision. Seconds later, an S-300 battery joined in, its scan cone widening like a hunting spotlight. Russia wasn't just tracking the target now. It was committing. Missile hatches opened, guidance systems synced, telemetry bursts spiked across the spectrum. To Russian operators, this was a routine elimination of a slow, clumsy drone. To Ukraine, it was the first crack in an $800 million shield. Each radar burst, each angle correction, each launch handshake revealed another piece of the system's internal logic. The timing, the hierarchy, the response rules. Russia thought it was firing at a drone. It was really firing at its own secrecy. Russia expected the decoy to fly straight, take the hit, and vanish. Instead, At the very moment the first missile streaked toward it, the drone split its signature. Not physically, digitally. Its transponder burst into 3 overlapping ghost echoes, each drifting in a slightly different vector. To Ukraine, it was a simple AI-driven trick. To Russia's air defense network, it was chaos. Suddenly, the Buk battery was tracking 3 targets. The S-300 saw 2. A Pantsir unit saw 1.5, flickering in and out like a broken light bulb. Operators scrambled, recalibrating their scopes, shouting conflicting coordinates over the radio. Automated threat ranking systems began reshuffling priorities every millisecond, unsure which signal was real. And then the decoy delivered the final insult. It slowed down, a behavior no cruise missile or recon drone should ever display. To a human, it looked like a mistake. To Russian AI filters, it was a violation of expected flight logic. The system panicked, 3 radars locked, 4 alarms tripped, and Russia's $800 million air defense grid began chasing a target that didn't even exist. While Russia's entire air defense web fixated on the decoy swirling above them, Ukraine's real strike came from below the horizon. At sea level, just meters above the ground, a pair of low-profile attack drones skimmed forward. Quiet, cold, and nearly invisible. Their thermal signatures were masked, their paths randomized, and their timing synced to Russia's moment of maximum confusion. Every radar dish in the region was pointed upward, trying to untangle the phantom echoes from the decoy. Not one system was angled low enough to catch Ukraine's real weapons. They slipped through the blind spot untouched. The first drone targeted the Buk battery's radar mast, a thin, vulnerable spine. One shaped charge detonated, and the entire radar collapsed like a folding antenna. The second drone streaked directly toward the Pantsir operator cabin. A flash, a shockwave. Silence. By the time Russian operators realized the sky had gone quiet, it was too late. Their sensors weren't jammed, their missiles weren't outmatched. Their doctrine had simply been rewritten in real time. Ukraine hadn't beaten the system. It had made the system look the wrong way at the wrong moment. Once the radar mast fell and the Pantsir cabin went dark, Russia's entire air defense bubble began imploding in real time. Without the central radar, the Buk launchers were blind. Without the Buk, the Pantsir systems were overwhelmed. Without both, the remaining interceptors became nothing more than expensive metal parked in a field. Operators scrambled to reboot backup channels, but every system depended on the radar that was now lying twisted in the dirt. Panic rippled through the network. Misfires, lock-on errors, contradictory alerts. Within 4 minutes, the $800 million air defense grid designed to shield an entire sector had collapsed into total radio chaos. Within 7 minutes, Ukraine had mapped every blind corridor the fallen radar created. Within 9 minutes, Russia's command channel issued the only order left: shut everything down. Not because the systems were destroyed, but because they no longer knew what was real and what was another decoy. When the after-action report finally reached Moscow, it didn't read like a battlefield update. It read like a disaster. A $50,000 plywood and carbon decoy had forced Russia's most advanced air defense systems to burn through millions in interceptors, expose their radar frequencies, reveal command delays, and collapse their entire network without Ukraine losing a single real drone. Senior officers tried to soften the wording. They couldn't. The logs showed panic. The burn rate showed waste. And the kill chain showed something far worse. Russia's air defense doctrine had been outsmarted, not outfought. Inside the Kremlin briefing room, the silence was suffocating. Someone finally muttered the line no one wanted to say out loud. If a fake drone can do this, what happens when Ukraine sends the real ones? Russia's generals didn't fear the decoy itself. They feared what it revealed. Ukraine hadn't just tricked a radar. It had mapped Russia's entire decision cycle. How fast commanders react, how quickly batteries reposition, where gaps open under pressure. And those gaps were now logged, modeled, and fed into Ukrainian strike algorithms. Within 48 hours, Russia quietly ordered emergency redeployments from Crimea to Belgorod. Air defense crews were told to rotate frequencies hourly. Interceptors were rationed. The message was clear. Ukraine hadn't exposed a system. It had exposed a strategy, and Russia had no quick way to fix it. For decades, militaries believed victory belonged to whoever built the biggest, most expensive systems. But Ukraine had just rewritten that rule. A $50,000 decoy didn't just survive Russia's $800 million fortress. It bent it and mapped it and opened it for the real strike. In modern warfare, cost doesn't equal power. Information does. The side that controls the data, the timing, the pressure points, wins. This wasn't a fluke. It was a warning. In the new era of war, agility beats armor, every time. As dawn crept over the horizon, the shattered remains of Russia's $800 million air defense wall smoldered in silence. No sirens, no counterstrike. Just a battlefield where the most feared system in the region had been undone by something it never even considered a threat. Back in the Ukrainian command tent, the decoy's project lead closed his laptop with a quiet exhale. No celebration, just the understanding that they had witnessed a shift in modern warfare. A moment when costly power lost to clever precision, and the old rules cracked like the hull of a burning launcher. Because in this war, the giants aren't falling to missiles. They're falling to strategy. If you want more cinematic, high-intel breakdowns of the battles reshaping our world, subscribe to Vanguard Military. The next strike is already unfolding.